9. We're off the turf today. It has created a couple of short fields during the sequence, so I'm going with just a $10 ticket. I think the Steve Asmussen barn will dominate, going with a single of Ellich and Run Tappy in the first leg of the late pick 4. That is race number 6 today, that number 1 entry. I'm going with Asmussen again with the 3-5 Dreams in the second leg. Going 4 deep in the third leg, 1, 2, 4, 9. That includes recent maiden winners in Sag Harbor and Newscaster, as well as the remaining part of the Broberg entry, Bibleman, who looks particularly tough on this off track today. Also throwing in the very speedy number 4, Rougarou. And then a pretty big spread in the 9th race. Originally, Sharp Rocket was going to be a pretty heavy favorite when this was a turf race. Now that it's off the turf, I think it opens it wide up. So I'm going 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 in that final leg. We did really well 2 days ago, or last Sunday, I should say. 2 race days ago, we had the sequence for you. Yesterday, not so much. We'll see if we get back on the beam today. Follow these selections and more at tvg.com, and good luck on your Friday. And a pleasant Friday to you. Welcome to Lone Star Park at Grand Prairie. Alongside Rick Lee, I'm Jim Byers. 2:35 Central, our first post time on Fridays now. We are off the turf once again today. We've got 9 wagering opportunities for you, though. Main track sloppy to start the card. We'll see how that updates. We do have a few scratches to tell you about, but none in the first, Rick. This is a really good race. Maiden special weights. 3-year-olds happen to be all of the top contenders in this one. I think it's a really interesting collection of fillies. Not sure how the off-track's going to play because, these don't have much, if any, experience at it. But it's a good race.
Yeah, I thought it was an exceptionally good race. That usually in a race like this, I do pick my best long shot, so I did in this race. The 3, Mine Me. I picked a lot of Todd Finchers. He's 1 for 7, so I'm on his bandwagon here again. I always like horses that show something as a 2-year-old. First started Albuquerque back in September, bet down to 5-2 in an 11-horse field. I consider that a good credential race, very wide, finishing 4th. Now has moved to the Fincher Barn, a very high percentage stable. A series of really encouraging workouts dating back to March, where second fastest of 43. The horse is a Mineshaft. Mineshafts are usually really liking off track, so I'm going to take Mind Me in a very competitive race. The 2, Fantastic Riva, who debuted on turf, interestingly enough, for $50,000 for Calhoun, who's off to a sluggish start for first 13 starters, but he'll win a lot of races. I just like how finished up really strong in that race. So fast closing second after, again, not a really sharp start. So I'll take that one second. Third, Lemuse, I wasn't sure. The pedigree says this thing should be a monster and be running at Churchill Downs or Santa Anita first time out. My Miss Aurelia, of course, earned $2.5 million. The horse's works are very, very mediocre, and the fact that she's debuting here, I found that to be a negative. And the early board actually shows the other Asmussen taking more money at this moment. I know we're really early, but again, I hate that I made her 7-2 because if she was a runner, she'd be 2-7 probably. I mean, but I don't know what you thought of her being here. It's interesting because Churchill's purses are 115,000 this week, and just odd that she's here.
My Miss Aurelia back in 2011 and 12, who was, again, a wonderful, wonderful mare, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, the Cotillion, etc., won her first 6 races. Mm-hmm. She won her first 6, and then she didn't win her last 5, but those were still unbelievable performances. So she was fast out of the gate. This horse, I got to believe if she was really no one's going to match My Miss Aurelia, but if she was anything resembling a chip off the old block, she would still be running for those big purses in Kentucky. The fact that she was in Kentucky until as recently as a little over a week ago makes me think they surveyed the landscape and thought, let's see if we can break her maiden at Lone Star. So I picked against her. I went with Fantastic Riva. A really nice race last time. Came from well out of it, weaved through traffic. Not an easy thing to do for a firster. Now she gets over to the main track. It's a little extra distance. I think it could be a good time for her if she likes the off-going. So I took it 2, 7, 8. I'm intrigued by this Reliant, who was absolutely devoid of speed at Turf Paradise in her first 2 starts, but was $1.50 to 1 last time and was gaining last time. I don't know about the racing there. Typically those horses don't fare particularly well when they ship here, but I looked at her for 3rd over your long shot.
Yeah, this is probably the best betting race of the 9, I would guess.
Good car, good race. Second race, unfortunately, decimated by scratches. It's off the turf. It's 5/8 on the main track. Take out the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. That leads us with just win wagering and the multi-race wagers involving the second. It's now a match race with, I already thought Cobra Casablanca was, maybe the most likely winner on the card to begin with, and now she only has 1 to beat.
Yeah, she's extremely quick, and Quinnell is not. So, I mean, it just going to open up a huge early lead, and we'll just see. I guess if she doesn't like the turf, there's a chance she could get beat in here. But, again, there's not much of an analysis.
Doesn't like the slop.
Cobra Casablanca is just super fast, and the other one's a pretty good finisher. So, but anyway, it's a simple race. I mean,
and so keep an eye on the track conditions. Certainly with Lindy Wade will be able to pick his path. If he doesn't like the inside on the sloppy going, he can take her to the outside. He can take her to the 8 path if he would like to.
It's only 5/8 of a mile, too, so it's hard to imagine that one getting beat.
It is difficult to imagine. On to the third, 5.5 furlongs. This one is for fillies and mares, non-winners of 3 claimers, and we got a short price on the line here as well.
Yeah, with Neon Dreams. Very good record at Lone Star Park, a good record on a wet track. The fastest recent buyer figures were earned at Houston. One was on a track rated good where I want clear that non-winners at 2 by 3 1/2 lengths. Good recent workout since that win, so Neon Dreams to me deserves favoritism. The one Catskill Ghost, who started her career doing really well at Remington, a second, followed by a maiden win, a non-winner's a 2 win, all of them by clear margins. Tried to route it around last time against allowance rivals at Houston. You can probably throw that one out. Looks like that she's better sprinting. I do like the 2 works at Lone Star, a minute 1/5 fastest at 12, and then a 48-3. So the workouts tell me that she's going to lead the gate, most likely running. She is a 6-year-old mare with only 4 career races. That's always worth a mention. The 4 Adina is my next selection. Ran at 5/8 of a mile at Delta Downs and contested the pace before drawing off to win by 4 1/4 lengths. That was his first race, too, with Carl Broberg as a trainer. Carl's starting off hot. He and Asmussen are really off to a really good start. Good early speed, draws outside the main competition. All those I would consider positives.
Yeah, I went with her second. Actually, I think she's kind of a strong second choice. It's interesting that Broberg had her in a non-winner of 3 last time, and she beat that level at Delta. Now she gets to face non-winners of 3 again because she's 2 for 7 lifetime. So she was up a condition level and did it, it seems like, with relative ease. But that being said, I mean, Neon Dreams, she's been a little bit of a money burner at times. But I think getting back to the main track will probably help. She's been in some really tough spots. If you go back, I mean, some of these races she's been in been much tougher than this spot today. And she did fire well fresh in May of last year on opening weekend when our racing was particularly tough, when, you know, we had barns from everywhere that first 2 or 3 weeks of last season when she won. So I think it would take some imagination for her to get beat. But you know, strange things can happen. But I went 2-4-1. 4th race, take out the 1 Swanky, the ever quick one. This one 5.5 on the main track, and it is a filly and mare $7,500 claimer.
Yeah, I made it a 2-horse race, basically on paper. Karate Hottie and Suze or Suze.
I'm going to go with Suze.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went with Karate Hottie. I mean, this was a tough call. In a very strong 2 other than last year at Lone Star Park, ran a very strong second. Fast forward to his recent races at Houston and optional claiming races. Large field of 9 last time, beating only a neck. Seems like in 3 wet track starts, she's been right there every time. I think the wet track probably helps her. Good early speed, doesn't have to have the lead, but she'll be very close. Suze is my next selection, who was actually scratched yesterday at Oaklawn Park on a $7,500 claiming race. They kept 1/2 of an entry in, who ran second. But my point is, Carl entered in this race, the one at Oaklawn. He chose this one. Been running at Aqueduct. You can see one of the off-track races back in November at Aqueduct was a front-running win. She looks extremely quick. A very good wet track record, having won 2 of 6. To me, I mean, it's a very tough call, I thought. And then I went with Sassy Kenzie Girl, the 5, is my next selection. Last time out, cleared that non-winners of 3 condition, coming from off the pace at Houston, going 6 1/2 furlongs. You do see a good mud race last June at Lone Star Park, so obviously the wet track here on our particular surface, she handled really well.
You know, it was a tough call for me, too. And you know, the gym pre-2021 would have been all over Karate Hottie because I have a recency bias, and I like that good form. And she's in good form. But I went with Suze. You know, she clearly went sour of some degree at Aqueduct because she couldn't get out of her own way there after a really good run. Maybe she needed some freshening. She seemed to be training well at Oaklawn. The fact that they're running her here rather than keeping her there is intriguing to me. I don't like a filly that folds 3 races in a row, and she says folded, 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 which was the Equibase chart caller in New York's term for her. But I also don't like hung, weakened, faltered, vanned off, which are the last 5 short comments for Karate Hottie either, even though her performances have been better. So I lean with Suze, but again, like you said, this is a very interesting 5-horse field. So I went 6-4-5. On to the 5th. Off the turf here, 5/8 on the main track. Scratch the 6, Pawpaw's Boy, and the 7, Mac Be Quick. I really thought this was one of the tougher races to decipher. I could have gone any one of about 4 ways.
Yeah, this is a very good race. I went, now that we're off the turf, I went with the 3, Breaking the Bank for Calhoun. Looks like I'm on Calhoun's bandwagon today. Bank On It, the mare, was a multiple Grade 2 winner, so she showed a lot of class. Gemologist is a well above average off-track stallion. Ran the best figure in the race last time out at Houston, 6.5 furlongs, a clear maiden special weight win, earning a 71 buyer. So to me, there were enough to like to make give him the slight edge. The 5 horse in here, Invincibility, won in the slop in a maiden special weight race at Fairgrounds. That's a major credential. Was given a little time, showed up at Oaklawn Park in a strong optional claiming, one other than. Actually earned a very good pace figure in that race. Some horses don't care for the Oaklawn surface. I just think that race is very misleading, showing such good speed and a really good quality field. Now drops into a race at 5 furlongs here at Lone Star Park. Invincibility, I think, is going to run really well. And then let's go to the 8, Lucky Promise, Austin Gustafson. This horse finished second. This is an important thing now in the Texas Breeders' Futurity last year's a 2-year-old behind Superstock, who I believe is a contender in the Kentucky Derby, recent Arkansas Derby winner. And then you can see him running competitive with Bobby Brinkley, who is a very strong winner here. It just looks like Lucky Promise, if he brings his best race, he'll be right there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've got the same picks, same order. Do your PPs, which were printed more recently, show any recent works for Invincibility since March 22nd?
No.
I thought it was odd that I know it's only been 20 days, but it just seems odd after a performance where he was beaten by a really long way that Steve wouldn't have Invincibility work in the interim. I don't know. I might be reading too much into that. And Invincibility, who was a relatively, by our standards, high-priced American Pharaoh yearling, lands in a much softer spot today. But that being said, I went with Breaking the Bank. I mean, he came back firing, ran a really nice race at Sam Houston on April 3rd. I don't know if you believe in the bounce theory, but this horse was off from May to April. You know, that's an 11-month or 10-and-a-half-month layoff, comes back, runs his eyeballs out. Some people, at least, 30, 40 years ago would say, well, maybe he's liable to bounce. I'm going to test that theory here today by taking him over Invincibility and Lucky Promise. We'll see. Another interesting race. Some close calls on that one, I think, as to who the favorite.
I mean, Breaking the Bank has had 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks, and it's a colt, not a filly. I mean, there's reasons for me to believe that he probably won't bounce, but that is the excuse I'm going to give if he gets beat.
Sure. Now we have video in the 6th race, and we're going to go over to our friends in Hot Springs for the video. Elitch, March 26th at Oaklawn. Now, first of all, okay, this isn't the right race, so let's go ahead and dump out of that. This is a Sam Houston race. Let's see if we have an Elitch race for March 26th at Oaklawn. If not, there was a horse named Off Sixes. I watched the replay 2 or 3 times. I still couldn't figure out how he lost. Elitch came up the inside and beat him. I just think, Elitch loves this track. He's won on and off track. So has Run Tappy. I don't see how they're going to get beat. So I took the entry, and I'm singling them on my suggested pick 4.
Yeah, and these Oaklawn horses, when they run well, they come down here. They're usually really heavily bet, and those that are running okay at Oaklawn generally are really tough to beat here. The interesting thing about this field is the lack of speed in this race. I mean, there's not a really what I'd call a confirmed front runner in here. So Elitch and Run Tappy, whether they like it or not, they're going to be a little closer to the lead than they, I think, typically would be. But they're clearly the 2 best horses in this race. The 5, Earn Never Given, had a really nice 3-race winning streak over the winter. A couple at Remington, 1 at Houston. Been overmatched in straight allowance races in the last 2. Gustafson, I think, has him spotted well today. And then let's go to the 4, Millwood, for Carl Broberg. Again, another horse that had back-to-back wins over the winter. Relatively close to the pace. Last race at Houston was on turf. Draw a line through that one. Does have a wet track win. And again, in a field with very little early speed, maybe Matheson will get to the front. But this could be a funny race because I really feel like they're going to crawl early.
Yeah, I think G's Turn, who has shown at times the ability to take the lead going a mile, might end up leading for as long as he can. I think G's Turn might need one, so I took him second in here. Actually, G's Turn does pretty well, I noted, when he gets up near the front end of the field, and he's an old class horse that ran here up the track, but ran in the Steve Sexton Mile 2 years ago. But, yeah, I agree. It could be a strangely run race. Elich last time at Oaklawn came from the clouds and got up and won in a protracted stretch drive battle. Run Tappy came from well back as well. So I'm going to go with the entry over G's Turn and Earn Never Given. Soft spot for Millwood because in my decade or so as a baseball announcer, I had the privilege of calling one Texas Ranger game as a fill-in, and Kevin Millwood was the starting pitcher in that game.
And he was a good pitcher.
He was. Slow worker. You had to have your prep work ready for a Kevin Millwood start. But, yeah, good pitcher. I mean, he did lend a veteran presence to some Ranger clubs there in the late aughts that were not very good until they had that turn there around 2010. On to the 7th. This was originally shaping up as two Calhoun firsters against a heavy Asmussen favorite, but then Summer Splash scratched. Maiden special weight, 6.5 furlongs. Now it kind of leaves Five Dreams as sort of, I think, a somewhat prohibitive favorite. Even though you talk about money burners, he has set fire to a bit of money, but he was doing it against most likely tougher maiden fields.
Yeah, January 30th, 2 starts ago. I mean, he was 40 place, finished second at Oaklawn Park. That was a fast race for a maiden 50. And then at Houston finishes second behind Breaking the Bank. Now, Breaking the Bank is impressive earlier in the card today. You can move up the stock of Five Dreams, I would think. But again, proven wet track ability, really good races against better than these. Experience, I mean, a lot to like for Five Dreams. It'd be nice to know if he scratched Summer Splash because he thought Lil Carpe was doing better. Brett Calhoun obviously trains both of them. But a really good work April 10th, as you can see, 1 minute and 3/5 from the gate, the fastest of 7, kind of tipped their hand in that particular work. A Carpe Diem, who's a really good sire. He's not a good wet track sire, though. When I looked it up, he's very mediocre on that in that regard. So, and then Remember Me Tony, I guess, who we believe was a vet scratch like opening night here. I made the note of that a week ago, so that might be a bit of a concern. But he did run some big competitive buyers, I should say, at Houston, finishing third in a close fourth. One of them was on a muddy track down there as well. Has a bit of a late punch to him. A good workout April 23rd after the scratch on the 22nd. Came back that morning, worked 48-3, so he's good to go.
Yeah, I have the same picks in the same order, but I'm intrigued by Candy Curl. Since the scratches and since the Calhoun more highly regarded firster came out, Candy Curl is kind of interesting to me. Asmussen firster, sort of unheralded. $200,000 purchase a year ago as a 2-year-old in training. Hasn't done much on the racetrack yet, but tries the local surface. I'm just kind of curious to see how that one does. But it should be go time for Asmussen's other runner here in Five Dreams. 8th race, we have a pair of scratches. Take out the plain one, Mr. Production. I really like Bible Man, the remaining part of the entry now with Mr. Production out, and also the 7 Valiant Appeal. And Rick, I really thought that took a good bit of speed out of this because I had speed written all over my PPs. Then when the scratches came in, I realized Valiant Appeal and Mr. Production like to be up on the engine, and they're both gone.
Yeah, it does change things a little bit. Your horse Bible Man, he's got nice, we'll call it tracking speed. He ran at 5/8, and those 5/8 Houston races, I mean, they generally get horses in the entry box that are very quick. So he was close there, finishing second. He's won 1 of 2 races on a wet track for trainer Broberg, who's only had this horse for 1 race, and again, that was a solid second place effort. The 2 horse in here, Newscaster, I thought was interesting in that he really hadn't shown a whole lot, and then they shipped to Will Rogers Downs in a maiden special weight race. Runs a very big race, winning by 4 1/2 lengths from just off the lead. The runner-up comes back and justifies the good number by running a really nice race itself. The downside is those 2 wet track races. They were so poor. So I remember Sue's Good News, the dam of Newscaster. She was really nice. She made about $250,000, and I noticed she had a very poor wet track record. So now I actually was thinking to myself, man, it's pretty risky now, Newscaster. I mean, based on the 2 wet tracks, the female line doesn't seem to like an off track. So anyway, Newscaster could be a little bit vulnerable in here, and the 9's still in, right? Sag Harbor.
Yes.
Okay, and Sag Harbor, a terrific race at 5/8 of a mile at Delta last time out, winning by nearly 5 lengths. If you look at the previous races on synthetics, they were okay, but then you go to the last time the horse was on a regular dirt surface was October 28th at Churchill. Runs an 80 Beyer speed figure in a maiden race, beating only a neck, 5 1/2 lengths back to third. So if you isolate this colt's last 2 dirt races, you can make a case that maybe he'll battle for favoritism.
Yeah, that's true, and I don't know how, if you believe in the theory of recent maiden winners stepping up against winners and how they're going to fire next time out. I mean, Bibleman's a little bit more accomplished against those that have broken their maidens, but yeah, that more I look at it, that Sag Harbor race, you take those synthetic races out, and his last couple dirt tries are pretty impressive. I went with the entry here. I actually moved Rougarou up after the scratches and after a little bit of the speed was taken out of this. Rougarou's had about a month off since a race at the fairgrounds where he showed really sharp speed and wound up faltering and running 6th out of 8. But, he did break his maiden at the fairgrounds against Louisiana breds. Mm-hmm. He's kind of an intriguing possibility for me. So I ranked him second, Sag Harbor third. By the way, the 6-shooter is building a pretty good carryover. I didn't mention this earlier. 6-shooter on the final 6 races of the day, a 12% takeout wager, and the carryover in that is up to $32,338. So that's something to keep an eye on. 9th race off the turf, 1 mile on the main track. Scratch 1 and 2, Pure Courage and Cairo Warrior. Scratch 11 and 12, Blackrock Castle and Cool Power. When this race was on the turf, I thought Sharp Rocket, he could be just about any price based on that 76 Beyer last time out and going to the Broberg barn. I'm not sure he's such a cinch anymore. I spread out a little bit on this on my suggested pick.
Oh, I definitely would have spread out with the multi-race wager. I wound up on the 8 October Surprise off back-to-back second place 2-turn finishes at Remington, went to Houston, tried turf, and ran a very credible race there. It looks like this 4-year-old colt is a main track horse, and Steve may have entered this horse, thinking it might come off as well. But nevertheless, I like October Surprise as a top selection. Sharp Rocket, I'm sticking with this one for a second. His 2 dirt races don't look all that great, and Brad Cox was his trainer, so it's not like we got a positive trainer change here. The last time out, again, he ran that huge race like you just alluded to at Fairgrounds, a terrific second place and a really big Beyer. Now he's back on the main track. He does show a really fast recent workout at Evangeline on dirt, so, maybe he's just so sharp right now, or he's improved to a level where he'll be able to win on the main track against this type of competition. Goddard is my third pick. 2 in the money finishes at Delta, going 2 turns. Beyer figures are okay only. Has never raced on an off track, but is certainly bred to love an off track. A Tappet of a Giants Causeway mare, so bred to love an off track, but we shall see. Certainly won't be 15-1 now that it's back on the main track.
And it looks like another one that elected to pass on a race at Churchill to run here because he was entered in a race at Churchill tomorrow. I stuck with Sharp Rocket. I did look at October Surprise. He's just kind of a plotter. He needs to get going, and this may be the day that he does it. But I took Sharp Rocket. Seemed primed for another big effort. We'll see how he takes to the main track, and we'll see how he takes to an off track. He doesn't have he's been in off the turfers before, but it was a fast track. I stuck with him a little bit tentatively. The horse I'm really intrigued about is the 9 Stasis. That's my second pick. This horse figures to get a much more aggressive ride with Ernesto Valdez Jimenez today than he got with Sophie Doyle. Not to knock Sophie Doyle in any means. She's a very talented rider. She gave this horse a very patient ride last time, but he wound up buried in behind horses. Part of that was it was a 12-horse field. He was blocked a good bit of that race. Certainly blocked a good bit of the latter part of the race, as the comment indicates. Continued to be blocked through the stretch and ran a pretty nice 4th. It gets off the turf, back to the main track. His only main track start here, he was beating a 16th of a mile, but that was his career debut, and it was last summer. So I'm really intrigued to see if Stasis gets up into the race more with a hustling Ernesto Valdez Jimenez, who figures to get this horse prominent. And I took October Surprise third and Goddard fourth. But, yeah, to me, it's kind of a mixed bag. And Dynastrike ran a really nice race in a cavalry charge finish last time on the turf at Houston. And so did Go Speed Racer Go. They were all in the same race. I don't know what to make of them now that the race isn't on the turf anymore.
Yeah, this was going to be an outstanding race. It still is a competitive race to me, but, man, that was going to be a good race, full field, and it was going to be tough to separate them.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. 9 races upcoming. 2:35 the first post. If you're joining us on track, don't forget you can play advance wagering for tomorrow's Derby card today. Also today, and you have to do it before these races close. I'm not sure where Churchill is, but we were offering at least today the Oaks Derby double wager, a pick 3 and a pick 6 involving today's races, some of them and some of tomorrow's. Don't know where we stand on that because I know Churchill's way into a long card today. They seem to start at about 8 in the morning our time these days. But advanced wagering available for the Derby card, to be sure. Rick, good luck with your picks.
Thank you.
We'll do it all again tomorrow.
All right.
Don't forget, we start early tomorrow here on track at 1:35 with the first race on Derby Day. That's it for us. Thanks for looking in. Good luck.